I don't have time for this bullshit.
Ha! Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. All this guy ever does is BS. Anyway, it's time for another edition of BSing with Big Nate.
Almost Gone, the track Sanity, and welcome in to another edition of BS with Big Nate. I'm actually joined by someone we were introduced to and met last week, Mr. Nick. Is it Gober Keller?
Yep, Gober Keller. My parents cursed me with two last names.
There's nothing wrong with that. And of course, Zach Rhodes.
Zach. Yes, sir.
All right. So, of course, guitar vocals for Nick and bass for Zach, holding down the heavy end. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So let's talk. We'll start first and foremost with that track. You guys, of course, are relatively young projects, so there's a lot of perspective that I want to get, but I first want to talk about that song. Where's that come from? From a mental standpoint, that track?
Well, lyrically, the inspiration for that chorus was when I was 21. I was in college, and I was like poor college student, like a lot of us were at that age. And I cashed out my Roth IRA, and I got this big I got this letter from the IRS saying I owed this big amount of money. And I was like, what the heck, dude, I'm so poor. Why are they doing this? And it was somewhat of a misunderstanding. I got it sorted out, but I remember being like so worked up about it. And I was thinking like, what is the sense in doing something like that? Like, taxing the heck out of a college kid. If you're kind of like a independent, professional or something like that, that's one thing. And so that's where the inspiration from the chorus came from, the where is your sanity. But the rest of the song itself is really kind of more like a decry against. It's almost kind of like a punk rock message, like anything kind of keeping you down. It's kind of like a decry against any of that. As far as musically, I have to give the credit to Zach. He came up with, I think, all the guitar parts. He came up with them on bass, just jammed on them.
I would say, like, riff wise, I mean, there were just like a handful of riffs that we had just come back. Like, this was like shortly after we had kind of like got together as a band. We were all down at the beach in the Outer Banks. We had come back and we're having our first practice. And I just, that main riff was just kind of groovy. And I mean, all the riffs kind of follow like the same tempo or groove. There's just like small changes in between the first riff and the chorus riff and that bridge. But it's really just kind of like a heavy, groovy song. And it's just it's a fun riff to play. It's a fun song to play.
It's a fun song to listen to. I think there's a lot going on there, and I didn't know that background that we just got from Nick, and I feel so. Nick was kind enough to send me a bio on the band, and kind of it has that comparison on there with the Stone Temple Pilots, the Offspring, and Blink-182. But there's definitely, to a certain degree, kind of a Rise Against feel to me. It's definitely got a little bit of a harder edge.
So I'm definitely a huge Rise Against fan. I think a lot of the stuff that probably more recently, I probably wasn't thinking like a lot of Rise Against when we came up with that one, but a lot of the newer stuff we've been working on and anything that I've come up with is pretty Rise Against influence, at least from a bass perspective, because Joe Princip is one of my favorite bassists. Dude can play.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and I think it's a really powerful song. So something else I want to talk about, you mentioned coming back from the beach, Outer Banks, and in the first rehearsal, you guys kind of banded together back in 2019, and had what, basically a year under your belt, and then a pandemic hits. What's that feel like?
Sucks.
Disappointing. I mean, yeah, we played together we got together in I want to say March of 19, and that's when we were gigging like some months, like 3 times a month. And it was a blast. I mean, we were making some money playing and having a good time. And, we had a pretty sweet 2020 planned, and just boom, change of plans abruptly. So, I mean, we're making the best of it, like a lot of the bands in our scene.
I think the big upside of it though has been, I mean, it definitely it put a bit of a strain on things like right from the get-go, because we weren't practicing. One of our bandmates is like a healthcare professional, so he couldn't practice with us. We had some other people around us that were immune compromised, so we weren't like getting together and playing for like a number of months. But once we got back in our rehearsal space and started jamming, we played a few gigs around the end of 2020, but it really kind of shifted our focus into like doing more writing and creating our own music, because I think we're definitely doing a lot more writing now than we were back then before the pandemic started, because we were primarily doing a lot of cover gigs, but now we're definitely kind of shifting gears into doing a lot more of our own stuff.
Yeah, and I think that you guys kind of have a unique scenario. You're the first band I've started that basically had a year to go, and then everything kind of shuts down. But if you take that time, and it sounds like you guys have, to really kind of hone what you're doing, and you've got a lot of content stored up, you guys are poised for greatness, as it were, coming out of this. I do want to talk about first and foremost, you guys are kind of working in the studio right now. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we wrote Sanity and our two other singles that we have already recorded. We wrote those in 19, recorded them in 20, and they're locked and loaded, ready for release in 21. And we actually have a music video for one of those. And like you're saying, we've been working a lot on our own music, and the new stuff is much more in the vein of like the Rise Against and the Offspring, Blink 182. So we're really stoked about that. So like, even though we're releasing this music now, like the Sanity and stuff like that, you know, in a way, I'm kind of already like mentally, I'm in the state of the a little bit more gritty punk rocky stuff that we're getting ready to. Actually, this weekend, this Sunday, we're going in to record the first track. So we're pretty stoked about that.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Zach.
I was gonna say, kind of to add to that, to what Nick was saying, like the Sanity and the other two that we've recorded. I mean, we wrote those songs when we were like really young as a band. Like we wrote all three of those songs within the first 2 months of us like practicing. And when we recorded them, and it's kind of, now we're getting to more of that gritty punk rock sound, but the stuff we're doing now is much more cohesive. Like it all kind of belongs together, like in consecutive tracks, as those other three that we've recorded, where the other three are like, all right, we just got together as a band. So those three songs we've already recorded, like you'll hear like a lot of different influences in them, because we were really kind of experimenting and getting to know each other as musicians and feeling each other out, and learning each other's play styles. So there's definitely a big difference between the three we've recorded and have yet to release and the new stuff we're working on.
All right,
Yeah, we didn't think about like direction at all. We just kind of like came up with riffs. We're like, oh, that's cool. And then, threw it together.
Hey, we wrote a song.
We're a little bit more intentional now.
I think that's important, but I think there is something to be said for the power of riffs. I mean, you look at a band like Five Finger Death Punch right now, they're blowing up on radio, and I don't necessarily think that their music's the best. It relies on riffs and like Ivan Moody and his like tough fake bravado. So I mean, there is something to be said for that, but I do like the more intentional direction. I will say this because I brought up Five Finger Death Punch. Sanity is a far better track than anything that Five Finger Death Punch has on the radio right now.
Ooh, you're gonna get in trouble, man.
We'll be fine. But I want to ask, because we've talked about this, you guys are, like I said, a relatively young band, and how did everything come together? How did Almost Gone form?
Yeah, so I moved to Richmond in 17, and I had been in and out of bands from January 17 when I moved here up until I got together with the guys and Almost Gone. And so the way it formed was I was jamming a lot with Connor, the drummer. I've known Connor. We went to high school together. I've known him since I was 14. And we jammed so much. We're like, dude, we should get out of this apartment and like play gigs. This is fun, but we should go do something a little bit bigger. And so we scoured the internet and we came across Zach. I actually called Zach and I asked him about influences, and he said a couple that he said Tool, Greta Van Fleet. The Greta Van Fleet for some reason stands out to me. And I was like, boom, all right, that's going to be an awesome fit. So Zach came and jammed, and we were going to be a 3-piece band, kind of like, Blink 182 with a guitarist that sings and bass player that does some singing. And then we, one day Connor was like, I know this guy named Rodrigo. He says he plays guitar. Can you come over for a jam? And I was like, yeah, whatever. We'll see how it goes. And it really just sounded, with that second guitar, it just sounded like full. And I was like, yeah, the fit is there. And so that's how we came up with this lineup we have now.
It's interesting you use that phrase full, because I often, I get a lot of demos. I get a lot of singles submitted my way, and half of them don't see the air, half of them don't see interviews. And it's not because of a lack of passion or a lack of stick-to-itiveness, to use a completely made-up word. It's that doesn't sound full. There's a missing piece, and yeah, maybe down the line. But Sanity, even, it, like you said, it sounds full. There's a full mix going on there. It's definitely a complete song. And I think that's yes, I mean, you can make the argument for mixing and mastering, but still the song's got to be performed live, and it's got to sound pretty much just as good as the single, if not better. And I think you guys have that. There's a sound there. It's very unique. It's very Almost Gone. It's not like I'm saying, it sounds like Rise Against, but it's not. It's Almost Gone.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's part of the reason why is because we made those without having any direction in mind, if you know what I mean. We just kind of played and we came up with that first riff, the down no, and then we came up with the second part and wrote some lyrics to it, and that's what you have. So but with this new stuff we're coming up with, we actually got the artwork done for the new single that we're going to record this week, and we got that done already, and going and getting ready to record it. I'm pretty stoked to let people hear what we've been working on the last couple months.
So, I mean, obviously, like you said, you've got 2 more singles in the books. You've got a music video. Do we have release timelines on any of the stuff?
We're planning on 8 weeks in between. That tends to be a good rule of thumb because I see a lot of bands, they'll put out a single and it rocks. It's so good. And then they disappear for 4 months. And then that when they bring out the next single, a lot of the people who really dug the first single, they're still there, but some of them have moved on to something else and they don't even remember them. So that's, we kind of, the mindset is kind of like, let's release something and we'll enjoy it. We'll talk with people about it. We'll play it, promote it. And, and in 6 to 8 weeks, that'll probably be a good time frame. We can release the next one so they can hear the next piece of music that we've been sitting on.
No, I think you're spot on. I think that's a good mindset to have. I want to ask about something else. You had sent me a video. I don't know how public all of this is, but of course it looks like there's like a mini documentary going on. I'm assuming about the Richmond music scene. What's going on? Because there's a snippet of some stuff in there.
Yeah. So our boy, Mr. Pedro Lopez, who is our photographer. By the way, if you're a band in the Richmond area, I very strongly recommend Pedro. Super professional, really good with understanding lighting and how to create themes for band pictures. He's not going out there just snapping pictures with an iPhone. He really knows what he's doing. But Pedro wanted to do this mini documentary, and he asked if he could film us. And so we said, yeah, sure. So we had sort of like a cookout one day, and we said, hey, this would be a cool place for you to film us. Come over and, we'll do some Q&A and stuff like that. So we've only seen a preview of it. We haven't seen the full thing yet, but at least in the preview at the first minute, you get a nice snippet of the new single we've been working on.
All right. That's exciting stuff. Of course, I've been chatting with Nick and Zach of Almost Gone. Where can they find you online?
Facebook.com/AlmostGoneRVA, Instagram, same thing, Almost Gone RVA, and YouTube, Almost Gone RVA.
And of course, they are on Spotify. Sanity up there now. We'll be looking out for the next single. Nick, Zach, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah.